All right, welcome back to My Life, Sam Radford. On this episode, we have a pretty cool individual. His name is Zach Menace, aka Sketch Menace. He used to run the Alberta division, and he kind of helped spearhead the Vancouver division and King of the Dot.
Right.
Um, right now, he's hosts a podcast called Main and Hastings about all Vancouver things, pop culture and history related. And he also works at a weed store out there in like the main part of Canada that grows and is the boomer for the weed. That was a pretty bad description, but it's all good.
Weed
Welcome,
boomers.
welcome to the podcast, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you having me. It's cool to like I said before, get hit up for battle rap related stuff. It's not often that it happens anymore.
Yeah, for sure. I had last week's episode. We had Caustic on, and when he messaged me, he said, "I didn't know people even wanted to talk to me anymore."
Yeah, that's awesome. how's Caustic doing?
Oh, he's used to be great, man. He's running a bunch of bars and nightclubs and stuff out in San Francisco and Oakland. And
Good for
he's
him. I feel like all of us like quietly follow each other on Instagram, just kind of keeping up with each other and stuff. I see everyone doing well. I'm always happy to see it.
Yeah, well, it's like as a battle rap fan, because like you, as me growing up, his kid is now 13 or 14 years old, so that just makes me feel so old myself, you know?
Oh, crazy. I know. It's like I see Thesaurus post pictures of his daughter, and I'm like, Jesus, you were a baby when like the scene was first sprouting, right?
Yeah. Oh, it's crazy to see it, man. But yeah, so I just wanted like a first entry level question I always do, just as like when did you first fall in love with hip hop? Like what was that moment?
Man, I was 13, 14 years old, and I think a lot of it had to do with there was a lot of like I always remember Tupac and Bone Thugs and stuff being around, but it was like similar to like I'd have to say it was like Rough Riders, Jay-Z, when DMX really dropped. That kind of was really that's why DMX passing was hard on me, because I think that was like a real introduction to become like a real hip hop head, and battling was an interest of mine right off the get-go. I always really enjoyed people who were competitive about it and who had I was always far more inclined to lean towards lyrics than beats. And later in life I found people that were more interested in beats. I always thought it was a weird thing. I was like, really, you're not like hanging on word for word?
Yeah, no, I was like that a lot growing up too. Like it didn't even really matter about the beat sometime. It was only about the lyrics. So then I always kind of
Yeah.
hated the mainstream rap in the early to mid 2000s because it wasn't like that. And
My
I'm
peak of rap nerdom, I was probably like into Aesop Rock,
oh god.
acapella verses and shit. Like, you know what I mean? That's so funny.
Oh man, Aesop Rock, Sage Francis,
Yeah.
Brother Ali, that kind of stuff. Oh yeah.
Yeah. I fell off of all those dudes, except I still like Aesop Rock a lot. Me and my kid listen to Aesop Rock quite a bit.
My mom's a public school principal, and she uses an ASAP Rock song to teach kids about some kind of social issues.
Wow, cool. That's dope.
Yeah, yeah, it's very funny. But like, yeah, she used to download the clean versions of rap songs, and it was the best thing in the world because half the song would just be cut out.
That's awesome, man.
But yeah, man. So okay, so with battle rap, I'm not as familiar with the Alberta scene like pre KOTD. But
Mhm.
what was it like for you coming up as a rapper and starting to battle in Calgary in that area?
Well, there wasn't much at that time. King of the Dot came around at a very convenient time where there wasn't much locally happening. There had been these Cherry Lounge battles, and there were a lot of like places that would kind of hold battles off and on. There was a dude, shout out, I haven't talked to him in forever, but DJ Ambidextrous used to hold freestyle battles all the time. And at that point in time, I wasn't really when I was living in Toronto as a young person, I was really engaged in hip hop. When I moved back to out to Calgary to take advantage of work opportunities and things like that, I wasn't really into local scenes as much and things. I was just kind of nose to the grindstone working. And then King of the Dot kind of fell on my lap. And then when I found King of the Dot, knowing guys like Wodewski, Lexington, and Holohan at the time, that's where I learned about some things that were happening at the same time. So battle tactics and like other kind of smaller things. But King of the Dot ate it up really quickly. None of it really lived long.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's what was so cool about King of the Dot. I find like and grind time when these leagues started, you have divisions all over, and it's almost just I always reference it to whether it be wrestling or a sports team because you always in basketball and hockey you have the East and West, and then in like you have the American and the National and baseball, and it was just so cool because you always knew what you were going to get from certain divisions and like
Yeah.
and the rosters and the rivalries, right? Like it was great. So like
I miss those days, man. Those were really, really fun times in battle rap for me. And you're right, it really strikes a wrestling chord.
Yes, 100%, because it became with personalities, and you expect this certain facet of skills from this person, or like you had like I remember, I don't know if you've seen or remember the battle. I think it was Carter Deems and Star Almighty versus Dirtbag Dan and Solcon,
I
and it
do
was a
remember the battle
very
very well.
random battle, and nobody would expect Carter Deems or the Star Almighty guy to do well, and their styles work so well together. And like to this day, it's one of my favorite ones to like show somebody who's not a fan of it.
You know, names that like, I mean, Star Almighty, I almost had Cheddar Cheese and Star Almighty booked at one point, early days of King of the Dot battle scene. So, or for in Alberta. So, I mean, you're saying crazy names.
Oh man, when I had Kid Twist on, I spoke to him about a competition he won when he was 17 at Queen's University, and he was scared. He was like, "How did you know that?" And I was like, "I just know."
That's great. I was pretty super fan before I entered as well. I remember when Kid Twist had kidtwist.com, and I read it and stuff. And I remember when it's battle rap to me had this like hockey card collection vibe to it when I discovered it. And it was just so cool, and the personalities and what they were saying at that time. Things, I can't tell if it was because I was younger and things were more valiant to me at that time, or if I look back on it with more context now that's making it askew. But like at that time, it felt like everything was already existed in the universe, and it was about us grabbing it and putting it out there. It was perfect. Like there were, all the lines were structured, everything was 60 seconds, like everything was so tailored and well. And I look back on those years so fondly, man. I wish I knew that those were the good old days when they were still happening, because like I definitely didn't take advantage of them as much as I should have.
It's insane to think about it, man, as a fan as well, because I actually started watching KOTD in like 2009, and then I had already known about the Elements League because I grew up in Nova Scotia, and then I got into WRC and had all the backlogs, and then with King of the Dot, it was so amazing in grind time because you had all that, and the structure was still short and in your face, and that's what matters, right? Rather than like a 5-minute round in like a URL setting or something. Is you knew people's records. You knew like rivalries within other things, and then you had the Grand Prix. You had the 2-on-2 Grand Prix. It was just so cool, and then seeing people come up like for you. But we'll delve back into when you started running the Alberta division. But I remember one of the coolest things was, and there was a Grand Prix. I don't know which Grand Prix it was, but it was a single man Grand Prix, and you guys had Sun Tzu, I think his name is, and he was from like Oregon or Seattle or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And he
Shout
was
out
like,
Sun Tzu, man.
he was amazing to me, man. And I was just like, that's the kind of stuff that came out from that era of King of the Dot, you
He
know?
battled Fingers his first battle.
Yeah.
And he said something, state the direction. If you see a long-haired bitch in the mirror, don't blame the reflection. I remember that.
Fingers is a gentleman who has long hair, for the listeners.
Yeah. It's man, shout out Sun Tzu. He was a really good guy, really fun to work with right off the get-go. That time was so weird, because the battlers were so hungry, and we were one of the only ones really setting battles up and making content and doing it to a big degree. And we were doing it on the West Coast, and Toronto was so flooded, so like they were barely responding to people, and I was over here going like, let's make good battles happen. So dudes like Sun Tzu would hit us up, we'd watch their catalog and be like, oh sick, let's do it. And you know, some guys are good at communicating, some guys aren't. Some guys are like, okay. And so you talk to them 3 months beforehand, and then all of a sudden the day they just show up, they're ready to go. They got their 3 rounds, they know the drill. And then some guys you got a baby. And Sun Tzu was one of those dudes that just popped up out of nowhere, was down to do it, knew the whole structure, drove from Seattle to Calgary, like he was with it, man. Like and then he was a pleasure to book onward from there.
So you kind of answered a question that I wanted to follow up with that. So first this will be like a double layered or a multi-layered, is like, what would you do to book opponents, especially guys who maybe weren't in King of the Dot before? And then, so Sketch, as I said, ran the division. And at the time, the Calgary Alberta division was the second biggest in King of the Dot. There was Toronto, and then there was Sketch's division. And so first off, how would you book people who never were in the league before? And then when you did book battles, how much input would you ask from other people when you were booking a battle about like how good the matchup will be?
Everything was such a community effort around us. Like the guys who were involved in the scene at that time were always, it was like, I think for fans, it may have come off to you guys like we had completely separate lives and we're completely not in communication with one another. outside of the events and the major things that were happening, but there were definitely some strong relationships within there. And when there was one guy pulling the strings, if anyone ever thinks that there was one dude pulling the strings making every battle happen, that's false. It was always a group effort. So people suggesting cool battles, I could think of a million that we wanted to do that we couldn't make happen for whatever reason. But we were all we were showing some Calgary didn't have a real battle scene. So guys like myself, Wadewski, Lexington, Ubiquitous, Cheddar Cheese, Matt Daly, Bruce B, McKnight, like all these guys at the time were trying to show a city something. So we knew about all these things that were happening around us, whether it be in the States or in Canada, or I mean, there wasn't a lot happening in Canada. So we were generally trying to cherry pick from the States because we knew about any talents that were really aspiring from within Canada because of things like Scribble Jam that had happened and WRCs and whatever. So those were always interests of mine beforehand. So like these names were always there. And if you were a battlehead and you didn't come across Scribble Jam or WRCs in some way and somehow follow these names, like, I mean, that's weird. So we were picking up a lot from American talent. So guys like Sun Tzu, who had a battle catalog with, I can't remember what league they were doing it with, but he was represented by or whatever. But he was just one of those guys that he made himself vocal. A lot of the time it was during those days, like there wasn't a ton of people asking for battles. So if you made yourself vocal, said, hey, I want to do this, I've done 2 battles, I won't choke, and I can do this, then it's just like, fuck, you're speaking our language.
Yeah, no, it's actually funny you say that because where I battled when I had my little stint of a small career was like I was living in Muskoka as a teenager, which is 2 hours north of Toronto.
Yeah.
It's like the Hamptons of
Yeah.
Ontario. And then 2 hours north of that is North Bay, Ontario. And they had this little tiny league called Gateway Battles. It was like 705 hip hop. And I remember just because I had a 30-second clip of me doing a shitty freestyle on my webcam, the league owner hit me up. He's like, hey, do you want to judge a battle? Looks like you know your shit. And, and I thought I was so cool from that. And then like did a few battles there. But we had people that tried out for KOTD. Like one of them actually, rest in peace. The best battler from our league was Q Shinobi, formerly known as, he yeah, I had Caustic on last week. Listen to that episode if you want to hear about that story. But anyway,
R.I.P.
Yes, rest in peace. And actually, in no funny business, rest in peace to McKnight and Bruce B, who were from your division, and I know you're very close friends with Bruce B.
Yeah, Bruce, that was a hard one, man. That was a long time ago, but it was a hard one. And you know what? That was one of the first times I really understood the weight of the battle scene, because I got hit up from all corners of the world that day, from people that like I didn't even knew cared about me. So it was. I remember being I remember looking at the scene very differently from that point on, being very grateful for things. And McKnight, rest in peace, just passed away recently. I don't know the details of which. I know he struggled a lot within a lot of different avenues. I hadn't talked to him in a very long time. We did our first battles together, so I obviously have a very special place in my heart set aside for that kid. Yeah, it's tragic, man. I hate hearing about all the people that have passed, man. I've got a Bender tattoo.
Rest in peace. I went to his memorial service, and I live in Ottawa. So
did you? That's great to hear. I wish I could have made it, man. But yeah, Cadillac Ron, all the Feel Good, Nat Select, all the people who have passed, all the really good people, creatives, fun people that have passed away.
So battle rap is a community, man, and it's what you say. Like all of this to me, it makes my heartstrings pull. Like it's it's personal.
You didn't realize it at the time, man. You don't realize it at the time. Fuck, if there's anything, like I'm a dad now, if there's anything any wisdom I want to embark on my kid, it's like, make sure to take advantage of the good times when they're happening. Like, don't think you're too cool to go somewhere, or don't think that like, I mean,
it's tough.
Robbed of a lot of good times because of egos that existed within battle rap, because we were so young. It's almost like we believed it was wrestling. So battle rap is wrestling, right? Like it's way closer to wrestling than it is UFC. But when we were young, we all looked at it way more like UFC than we did wrestling. We didn't spend that time curating things and making it a lot better. It was just like, we do as much planning and then whatever happens on the day of. But now that I've been watching so much wrestling content recently, and I know how much was planned, what the dressing room was like. And I wish we did a lot more like that in battle rap, because I think we could have made it more entertaining, and B, I think it would have strengthened relationships and made it more of a thing ongoing, because my view of it now is that it's very broken in terms of the Canadian scene.
Oh, 100%, man. And I, as a fan too, like, it's tough too because we spoke earlier, and in my eyes, the best era is when King of the Dot was just starting to pop off, and we had the world dominations, and everything was growing and getting big. But I find with battle rap, there's so many times where corporate entities have tried to invest into it, but it's just never from the right frame of mind. I find because
Yeah.
you had the Elkie David thing with that big Ether event with Cassidy versus Disaster, or you had the Slaughterhouse thing with the Battle House, which was like a reality show that was filmed like within 5 days or something like that. And it just doesn't seem like anything comes from like purity when it's invested in. I don't even know about Caffeine. Like, I haven't been watching a lot of battles lately, but apparently Caffeine's this app that has all the URL battles and stuff.
That's dope. I watch it. I watch
Yeah.
every URL event.
So like, see, that's seems to be working to me. And then what's really cool is this
I think that's so
season one.
smart. I think that's so smart. Sorry to cut you off,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
the problem with battle rap always at the beginning was how, like, turning it into money was always hard. And
Mhm.
that's not to say that it was all about trying to get money, but in the same way, like, you need to make enough money to keep this going, right? And especially to give guys enough time to produce content that's worth taking in. Like, they need to be able to have the convenience and like ability to do that, financial ability to do that.
That's
So
why the season one thing for King of the Dot, if you want to speak about that, it's a new thing that they just announced.
I'm excited to. I don't know much about it. If you know more about it, you can teach me. I'd love to. I'd love to
So
talk about it.
from my eyes, or what I've gained, is it's a season, so it'll be throughout a year. I'm not sure the exact month, but they're still getting battlers up until tomorrow or something, and there's going to be a certain amount of battlers, and it's going to be an actual season with records. So that's going to be awesome. That's something that hasn't been going on forever, and it's going to be, they're contracted to at least 2 battles per person, I think, and then they're going to be all live streamed on Twitch. And then there's going to be your semifinals, your finals, and I'm guessing the winner. This is just a guess, but the winner will probably face Saint, who just won the last thing that King of the Dot did with Twitch.
Word up, or maybe they'll get a title shot.
Yes, either or. And I think that would be real deal, probably.
Yeah, because I would imagine Saint would just be in the tournament.
Oh, yeah, I'm not too sure.
Anything.
That's what I don't really understand anymore. It's tough to follow. I don't follow as much as I used to. I try to still keep up.
I find that as a fan, and I don't watch it enough, and I'm not a part of Talkback anymore or anything. But I find that, like, the package is never fully wrapped up into things. I never really understand how things are moving. It just kind of feels like you start and we go and they go and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with you. So let's bring it back to what we do know. You booked. They had a battle in Vancouver. There was so King of the Dot. I think it was in 2011. They had this Grand Prix, but it wasn't a one-person Grand Prix. It was 2-on-2. So it's like doubles in tennis or a tag team in wrestling. And Sketch had Thesaurus and Ilmac, who were the winners of WRC 2 years in a row, and they had both been at Scribble Jam. Ilmac had won at Scribble Jam. Did Thesaurus win at Scribble Jam? Twice, yes. 2-time everything, my bad. So these guys were legends. And Zach brought these guys to Calgary. So what was it like having a group like that in such a young fandom of Calgary? Like, it was probably like seeing a Muhammad Ali fight if you're a boxing fan in like
100%.
the Philippines, like the Thriller in Manila or something.
You're absolutely right. I think it was like that. And don't get me wrong, there were a lot of seasoned fans in Calgary. It was just, there was 30 of us, right?
Mhm.
Over that, and we were doing pretty good on events at that point, doing 200 or 300 people. And we had a world famous venue. So everyone was stoked to come and battle in the distillery because it was this basement and it was a sound engineered dome. So we didn't need to be mic'd up. We could just be in there and the sound was full scaping. It was so awesome.
Yeah. So as he's saying, it's like a dome. So if you watch the events from Calgary, it's a massive crowd, and the audio seems amazing, like the acoustics, I guess you would say. And just like that's why I say they're one of the biggest divisions. I think people wanted to go there during that time. And I was
really dedicated to making those things pop at that time, man. Like, I mean, we were having a lot of fun. We had a lot of girls at our events, which wasn't the norm at a lot of battle rap events at the time. And people, like, we had a budding scene, so it was slept on, but the people who knew about it loved going there, like, because we had a ton of big names out there way before they were big names.
And you
They were
guys
big names,
birthed,
but not the same way, you know.
but you guys birthed a lot of good people too from your division as well. Like yourself, who was the King of the Dot champion at one point.
I'm
You
very
haven't,
proud of that. Yeah,
and you haven't mentioned it, so that means you're humble. You didn't start off with, "Hey, you forgot to say this," but yeah, Zach was King
Former
of the Dot
King of the
champion,
Hut, yeah.
and actually, he beat who we spoke about as one of the best battlers ever, Bender, rest in peace, and that's one of the best championship KOTD battles ever too.
Thank
Um,
you. I honestly, man, I look at that just to give Bender his flowers. Like I mean, I think that he's the best to ever do it. I think that he's one of the best makers, music makers and writers and rappers and whatever in Canadian history. Easy. I don't necessarily think I won that battle. I mean, now versus then and how you judge it is like really different. Like I remember the whole tone of the scene was very different at the time. And Bender was very before his time. I don't think a lot of people understood what he was saying, and they needed time to digest it to give it the credibility it deserves. But that battle means so much more to me than I think the average person now, because we, obviously carried out a relationship afterwards and we're friends. And so that video, the chain that I got that day and all that, and I watched that and I shout out Bruce B right at the beginning of it. So it's just kind of this whole full circle thing. So it means a lot to me. I'm very grateful. It's terrible to have two friends be lost, but in the wake of it, I'm really happy to have those things.
no, and 100%. I don't want to keep harping on the deceased, but
No, they deserve it. They deserve
in
it.
one
They deserve
positive
it.
note too, you have that memory with them. Like if you didn't have battle rap and they were just a friend, it would still be just as bad. But at least you can watch that and have that memory, and you know that Bruce was watching down on you when you were doing that, and now
Yeah.
Bender's listening to us right now.
Yeah, it's awesome in that way. So it's I'm great. I'm really grateful for that. I really, really am.
Yeah, man. So let's speak about that. What was it like having a title run? Because like at the time, you're running the division, and then like there must be so much pressure on both ends.
That was a lot. So to build on your last question, because I can go to because they happened within 8 months of each other, 6 months of each other. The Thesaurus and Ilmac battle and the Bender battle. So my two biggest ones were right side by side. I was running division at the time. I was running the whole West Coast bracket of the division. So I was also setting up the matches for Vancouver at the time as well, and doing the Vancouver one, hosting the events, running them. I was young at the time and not being the healthiest I could have been. So I was very stressed. My nickname around here was Stress Menace. Like I'd get so upset and so not mad at people or anything, but like, when people just become a fucking beehive of anxiety and whatever. I used to be that guy. So I look back, I wish I could relive a lot of the times that I had guys like Caustic or whatever out here so I could enjoy it to the fullest. But I was really trying to make the division pop and make a good thing happen in our city. I was really dedicated to that. But it was very stressful. It was a lot. And I think I was the only person within battle rap doing that at the time, outside of maybe like guys like who was also only doing it once a year. I was very active. So it was a big part of my life, man. Really huge part of my life, battle rap, all throughout my 20s. It was definitely my first love in that way, I think. Like I was obsessed with it. But then so the 2 versus 2 was crazy. I remember being stressed out, and I remember Organic being like, I don't know what we're gonna do, because we had the 2 versus 2 finals set up for the same day as me versus Bender. So it was going to be Thesaurus and Ilmac. So we were like, I was like, if we win this, we're like, it's going to be crazy. I can't remember a wrestling analogy, but I'm going to hold the tag team belt and the world champ at the same time, which would be cool. But never happened. I very happily lost to Thesaurus and Ilmac. We wanted to lose. We were dealing with an onslaught of hate because of cheddar cheese and ubiquitous robbery that we had committed previous to that, which I had no partake in. I was thinking about that the other day. This kid Water Mage were you a part of the forums at any point in time, like or like rapmusic.com and stuff over that period?
So like it's funny, man. Like I am young and I was a fan, but like in a sense I'm old as fuck. Like I found out about Reddit 3 years ago, bro.
Oh, okay, crazy. So rapmusic.com was where everything happened in battle rap. So if like you could be a fan, you could be really involved. If you were really vocal on that page, you could almost make battles happen and stuff if you were active enough. So this kid, after the cheddar cheese ubiquitous robbery, this kid, and I still to this day don't really know how serious it was, went nuts, named himself Water Mage, like MAGE, and a mage is like a part of earth fire thing or whatever.
I've heard that name before. I've seen
sure
that.
you have.
I've seen that.
It was insane. Like he wore like an MF Doom style mask and would make videos of him doing pull-ups and push-ups with like raps about me and how he's gonna come and kill me and he knows where I live in Calgary and all this stuff. I was never like threatened or anything. It's whatever. But the it was just it was the first time I experienced like, whoa, this is a weird world that I'm a part of. And I think the girl I was dating at the time was very kind of like overwhelmed by it too and things.
Yeah.
But the so that was really weird. So I was happy to lose to Thesaurus and Ilmac and focus on the Bender battle because I knew that this was my chance to cement myself in history. Like you couldn't take it away from me. You couldn't anything. I just wanted to win this battle, and everything after that didn't really matter.
Yeah, 100%. And like that's so battle rap. People are weirdos. That's so funny. People are the things that battle rap fans do, man. It's so fucking toxic. It's hilarious. Like
crazy. I've had a few fake Instagram accounts of me and stuff that were like they were like trying to say I was racist, doing things like looking at a plane with weird memes, and it's just like. Yeah, it's weird because I can see myself sitting there laughing with my friends doing some shit like that, like as a younger person, whatever to people, and so I get it to a degree. I don't like being a victim of it, but I can understand why it's funny to some people, but especially being a battle rapper, but like also it's crazy to think that there are people so invested in what we did, which I'm also grateful for at the same time. So there's a real dichotomy there.
Yeah, it's very, very odd. It's the good outweighs the bad, hopefully, mostly, right? So but like when you were battling when before you're running division, I don't think you're running the division at this point yet. Sorry for the stutter there, listeners. You battled in Oakland and you also battled in the UK as well, right?
No, the UK battle happened after.
Okay.
That was later. The my battle career kind of happened in phases, I think. I had the early phase where Holohan was running the division and I was coming up in Calgary. Then when I ran the division here, I decided in Calgary, I decided not to battle at home anymore and focus on newer talent and only do those 2 versus 2s and things like that at the time, in hopes that it would draw more appeal to those events. We could put newer up and coming guys on the cards. Like it was all a part of a system. So I was really trying to travel all from the beginning. So even from the jump of starting in King of the Dot, my second battle was in Toronto, like 2 weeks after the McKnight battle. So, and then I was jumping and doing a battle in Calgary and doing a battle in Toronto, doing a battle in Calgary, doing a battle in Toronto. Because I knew that if I was the only guy that was really going to push, the guys like Cheddar Cheese were pushing music careers. So they weren't going to dedicate that amount of time to doing battles all the time. So if we weren't going to have a series of those guys doing that, going around traveling, representing the scene, then there needed to be somebody doing that to bring credibility back home. So I guess inadvertently, I kind of took that upon myself. I was also not really working a lot at the time. I was saved money from construction and stuff like you had mentioned before. So like I was kind of ready to do something and dive into it, and the timing worked out really well.
Yeah. And what was it like? Because you battled at did you battle at Massacre of the Bay?
No, never. Yes. MOB,
Yeah.
Massacre.
Sorry,
of the Bay. Massacre. I was thinking Massacre.
Oh, yeah.
I did battle at Massacre of the Bay.
Yeah, you and Hollow the Dawn in Massachusetts. No.
Yeah, exactly.
No. What was it like? Because to me, I'd say Massacre of the Bay upon as well as like the Cap Callus event and then Old World Dominations is probably one of the best events ever. What was it like being at that venue and comparing, just battling in Toronto and Calgary and then going to Oakland?
Dude, so that's phase 2. That's the second kind of wave of my stint in battle rap was definitely right when that Oakland trip happened. Me and Tricky P went out there. We stayed together, and it was Sharon came out. Bartone was there. This dude Jaywalker, a bunch of I don't remember many Brits being there for that event. But this was right off the tails of Battle of the Bay 5.
Anecdote from Australia had a battle at that event. That's one of
the. Yeah. That's probably where I met him the first time. Because
that's about it.
Battling at World Dom, one of the World Doms 3, I think, or something.
Yes, you did.
So Master of the Bay was awesome. That was the time where it was like, okay, I was focused. I had Absurd, which was at the time I didn't care. I was like, give me an opponent, like I'll do it. I don't give a shit. Like I don't want to say no to somebody and then have them be like, oh, we can't find space for you on the card now. So I was just ready to say yes. battled Absurd, didn't get as many views. I remember at the time, I remember being upset. Now that I think about it, though, 30,000 views for anybody is super cool. Like, and I did really well. I remember guys like Sunny Bamboo, Poison Pen, Thesaurus, Disaster was really cool. It was meeting all these. I remember specifically Ilmac being a dick. Uh, uh, Everybody did. I remember everybody coming back and being like, everybody's really cool except for Ilmac. Uh, um, I think he was just stressed out about his Thesaurus battle at the time, though. But this was at a time where we were Canadians coming up there. We were looking at it still in this very fandom kind of scope. So we were really talking about it in like a hockey card celebrity kind of way over that entire weekend. It was really, really, really fun, and it was overwhelming, and it made me go like, I want to take this to the next level here in my home. And Organic was doing that at the time. So right on the heels of Master of the Bay, there was World Domination 1. And I had Dirtbag Dan, which was like one of my biggest fumbles in my career. I regret the shit out of that battle. I often think about what would have happened because HFK and I battled at some event leading up to World Domination, and the winner was going to get Dirtbag Dan. And Dirtbag had steadfastly said he will never battle HFK, but even though the world wanted to see it at that time, right? And I ended up beating HFK, so I got Dirtbag at World Domination, which honestly doesn't make a lot of sense at the time. It was kind of a stupid battle; it was forced, but I needed to be on the card. It was like, King of the Dot Canadian one thing. I was one of the only West Coasters that were out there, so it was like it had to happen. In hindsight, I probably should have gunned for somebody else and let Dirtbag battle HFK, because that was a real like kind of down point in things for me. But fuck, I remember Bender and 24/7 happening right before me and Dirtbag Dan, and just being like, fuck. like that's a tough act to follow.
Yeah, it's like a comedian talking about when like Chris Rock will randomly come to the Comedy Store and his set gets bumped, and he's like, well, I don't want to fucking go after Chris Rock.
Straight up. Yeah. But honestly, man, coming back from Master of the Bay, I was boosted up with confidence, right? All these guys filled my sails and shit. I felt so good. And then it was like, okay, I'm going to do this Dirtbag Dan battle. I didn't prep as much. I remember writing my third round in the hotel room the night before. So I came in with this undeserved gusto. And I still to this day remember Dirtbag rapping at me and being like, oh, this is what it's like. Right? Like, this is what being good at this is like. And this is what making someone feel small with your performance feels like. Dirtbag was great at that. And I immediately understood why he won battles in person and not on video, because this is just something that you can't feel. He's very, very good at that. And it was a big learning experience for me after that. And then I just went like, fuck, I'm not gonna fuck around from that point. And that's when I went on a pretty cool run after that. I can't remember who my opponents were, but I battled Aspire, which was the one. I had a big run, and I went like 11-0 or 10-0 or something like that. Dirtbag was my first kind of overtime loss. And then I went and battled Aspire in Vancouver for the first Vancouver event. They wanted me to come out to. Sorry if I'm rambling off. And
no, I'm enjoying this. Trust me, the listeners will enjoy this too.
Okay, good. Yeah. So they Organic wanted me to battle. Emotions was taking over, not a battle Emotions, but Emotions was taking over the King of the Dot division, and Organic was helping put together the first card. Thesaurus was out there for the first to host it and was doing like a music performance. And there was a couple of cool guys in the card. Warbucks was there, which was a really big nerdy rapper back in the day for us, for any forum nerds from back then.
Here, look at this is going to be for people who watch this. This is my impression of him. Because he had big ass headphones.
He did nothing. Yeah, you're absolutely right. He did nothing. I remember I like tried to move on the stage at one point to get to the bathroom while this battle was happening, and I like tripped over a cord, and it like destroyed, because he was silent and it made so much noise it destroyed the whole thing. It was the worst thing to watch ever. But it's on to this day. I still get talked about. People talk to me about it on the street, like in Vancouver, because we got kicked out of the venue for whatever reason. I can't remember. We went too long or something. And we were out in the venue. We were out in this alley, which is right behind the venue, which is torn down now. So it's kind of a part of history. And there was like 40 or 50 of us. And it looks exactly like a fight, right, in this Vancouver alley, but it's not. So there's all these people hanging out of their balconies and shit that are around. It's just a really super cool atmosphere that's getting built. And they think it's a fight happening. Then they realize cameras going on. There's all these lights and stuff. And they start to realize what's happening. It starts going, and like, I mean, go and watch the battle. The energy is really fucking cool. I say a lot of really like cringeworthy things. I'm sorry. It was 2007 or 8 or 9 or something at the time. So like, South Park was really influencing me, but like it was a really cool night, really cool atmosphere, and I felt really really honored to be a part of that. And that's what that win is what boosted me out. I think Organic was just bubbling from watching me like kill Aspire or whatever, because he was the hometown boy in Vancouver. And then I was like I said, I had a undefeated streak, so that's when they announced that I was going to get the next title shot. So and at that time it was Bender versus Arcane that was set up. So I watched that battle with a ton of intent and hoped that Bender would win, obviously. And the cards fell the way they did.
No, and don't apologize, because that's so great, because people who are fans will be, they like to hear the behind the scenes stuff.
Cool.
You know,
I'm happy to hear that people are still interested, man. It was fun. It's fun.
Oh yeah, dude, actually, no, it's so funny. So the guy that I mentioned before, I don't know if I mentioned this before we recorded or not, but there's a guy named Patrick Garome who hit me up.
Yeah, you did. Yeah. He's a friend of mine out here. I talk to him all the time.
And he was like, he's the first person who hit me up as a fan of the podcast. He's like, hey man, I really like what you're doing. Like, I'm listening to all the episodes. And then I was like, he was like, yeah, he mentioned that he knew you. And I was like, hey, we'll put in a good word for me, And then I messaged Zach, and then Zach was like, oh yeah, cool. And then I messaged Patrick to say thank you. And he's like, I didn't even talk to him yet.
Yeah, no, he didn't. Yeah, no. But he stops by my shop all the time. I see him once every couple of weeks. I mean, obviously COVID changes things and whatever, but like, and I'm sure I've walked by him 100 times and not noticed him since, but when we are in the same neighborhood, we talk quite a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, man. And like, it's just so cool to see how it works out like that with battle rap. It's such a worldly thing, man. Like, I traveled to England in 2012 to visit my granddad, and there's a girl from near where my granddad lived, and I only knew this from Don't Flop battles. Her name was Sigourney Fizzle, and I hit her up, and she got me weed through battle rap.
Dude, I cannot tell you how many times I have been hooked up with weed by battle rap fans. I remember in England, when I first got to England, the motherfucking fucker didn't like. He didn't. When I flew into I can't remember. I flew into Gatwick Airport.
Yep.
And I spent a night over by there before I went to London. And I remember being like spending my first night. There was nothing happening. It looked like fucking 28 days later, man. Nothing was going on around there. And I remember being like, dude, you didn't tell me. Like, yeah, fucking her. Anyway, I put up a Facebook message and said like, hey, can somebody help me out or whatever? And I think it was Tony D that ended up sending a kid over or whatever that helped me out. It's just awesome. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've been in a weird country or weird place and some random kid knew me or whatever from this spot or this and helped me out with this. Or I've been having drinks and some waiter guy was like, oh, I know you from this, and bought me a meal, which is like crazy, right?
Dude, it's such an unspoken
me and Kid Twist
thing.
were in LA. Me and Kid Twist were in LA for the Bender Memorial, and I took him. We were spending the day hanging out, shopping, doing bullshit. And like, I'm a really big art nerd and like toy nerd collector, whatever. So I was bringing Kid Twist around with me to all these shops and stuff that I wanted to visit. And at this one toy store, comic book store, the guy's like, you're Sketch Menace and Kid Twist. Like, and it's in the most weird places, at the airport for whatever reason, always at the airport.
It's so funny, man. I remember, because I was a fan of battle rap from a distance, because I grew up in small towns, like in Muskoka, right? So like, I wasn't going to events, and I was also underage. But when I moved to Ottawa, my first year of college, I went to Algonquin. And I remember seeing this huge dude in the cafeteria at Algonquin. I'm like, I think I've seen that guy in like Ottawa battles before. And do you know D-Bar?
Oh yeah,
Remember D-Bar? Yeah, bro. Yeah. I remember he saw that I was looking at him weird. He's like, hey, I was like, do you do battles? He's like, yeah. And I was like, yeah, I'm a fan, man. And then like to this day, like, he's gotten me jobs in the cooking community. And then like I ended up hosting like hip hop trivia events at places. Like, battle rap is such a funny world, man.
I've met amazing people in it, man. Yeah, really, really great people. Some of my best friends, I don't even talk to them about battles anymore. We're just friends.
Well, yeah, I remember I was a big fan of the Dirtbag Dan show, and then you started going on, or this might have been with Ruin Your Day. I can't remember, but you were doing skate competitions. Was it? Yeah. And like, it's just so funny, like what battle rap does, because like, also we spoke about how you and Caustic have the relation with playing Super Smash Brothers, like professionally, and he's still hosting Smash Brothers events. Caustic is.
Yeah. So I'm only N64. That's the only way. That's the only system console that I hold weight in. I can play the other ones, but like, yeah, Caustic and I, from the day that we met, I told him, I was like, you ain't shit in 64, bro.
Yeah, he actually shouted you out.
I remember talking Battle Bar video game lines. I remember he had a line that something about I was holding back the whole time thing, like a cool thing that I remember talking to him about before he did it in whatever battle that he did. And like, I remember that was like catalyst of conversation with him. We always had good laughs too. Just like he was always a funny guy to just like joke with about things. Never took it too seriously. Whatever.
Yeah, no, he's very funny. Like it's just that's what's so great with you guys. Like when I was a teenager, I looked at you guys still as like these heroes, right? As like wrestlers or like basketball
Yeah.
players. And then like I remember my first time going like seeing like Sharon opened up for Sunreal at Algonquin, and I went to that event. And funny little story for you before this, like I met
How is
Sharon.
Sharon's music live? Is it like did you rock a good show?
Terrible, but yeah. I went for Sunreal's music, and Sharon was there. I love Sharon, but he ended up, he's never going to be on.
No, Sharon's a great friend. I haven't talked to him in a long time.
To me, this is my podcast. He's never going to be on because I fucked him over once when Pat Stay battled him and I gave him some information. But yeah, Sharon's a good guy. Sharon, yeah, sorry. Anyway, but I went and I was like, oh, battle rappers are people. But a funny thing to that is Sunreal. I went up to him. I was like, hey, man, do you remember when you used to host King of the Dot Vancouver? That's what I'm a fan of you from. And he was like, what the fuck? How do you know about that?
It's crazy, right? I remember Sunreal from years ago. Yeah, like
dude, he hosted it was Catch 23 versus Cody the Catch, I think. It was like one of the first Vancouver battles ever.
Engineer versus Junk something. Can't remember. But Engineer, who's a really, really well-renowned producer in Canada that's done a lot of crazy shit for a lot of crazy artists all over the world. He's from Vancouver. He was an early part of the scene out here.
And he was a great rapper too, but he just stopped battling.
Yeah, a lot of guys did, man. A lot of guys were really winded and over battle rap by the time that King of the Dot and stuff like that came around, right? Like, I mean, there was a whole world before that even, like, we were doubling down at that point. It felt like, okay, we're really doing this. And like, it's crazy to see where it's become now because it's obviously gone leaps and bounds.
Yeah.
Right. But.
And I know you came up in Calgary, but I'm sure you know a lot about the Vancouver scene. I think because I know Jin battled Bishop Brigante when Jin was on like a tour, like he would just battle wherever he went.
Yeah.
Did he battle Emotions in Vancouver or something like that? No? Okay, I thought I saw him at one of like those random ones doing a battle in Vancouver back in like 2004.
He may have done a show here back in the day or whatever, but like the scene out here for battle rap was never really dense. There was only one or two guys, Aspire and Emotions, and this dude Manic that used to kind of rep the scene, but there wasn't. Calgary was one kind of step ahead because we had myself, Holohan was living there at the time, which really kind of helped bring everything together because his talent was so worldly and everyone, you could kind of circle around that. But myself, Holohan, Lexington, Wadewski, Ubiquitous, Cheddar Cheese, Matt Daly, Bruce, like we had hitters at the time, right?
Bone Marrow.
Yeah, of course. Bone Marrow, Neck Bone. There were, I mean, fuck, great personalities and people, man. Like, fuck, for real.
No, that's a really cool thing too. So like I'm going all over. Sorry for the listeners, but Zach also, like when he was running the Calgary division, he was going off and like, if you know of Alberta in Canada, it's like the Florida or the Texas of Canada. And so like you can kind of tell maybe the rap seems not as crazy as like it would be in like Toronto or Oakland, but he was going to places like Red Deer, Alberta and throwing crazy events.
Pulling big numbers too.
Yeah. And in Edmonton as well. And so like he wasn't only just running one thing in Calgary, he was representing Alberta as a whole. And
we were really trying to bring things together, man. Like I really feel like at that time we were doing cool things within our community. And a lot of times I wish whatever, you could go off for days about the things that you wish you had at that time, but they're great times. Shout out to everybody that helped be a part of that, man. Kripal and Edmonton really helped bring that scene together and make that a thing. These guys, ROB and Obnoxious Limited dudes really helped bring the Red Deer scene alive when we were doing battles there. We were doing stuff in Lethbridge. It was cool, man. Fun. The quarantine events were really cool. I always felt like those really stood up against other events that were happening in the world at the time, right? With the battles that we were setting up, but we were also putting on our talent as opposed to kind of hosting big battles that had nothing to do with their specific region.
But like also even the battles, like a person like Sun Tzu or something, as a fan, I knew you guys were always going to have quality content from your kid. So for listeners or people who aren't battle fans,
that's really good to hear.
There was Ground Zero and there was King of the Dot, and you knew it was going to be a good battle if it was uploaded to King of the Dot's channel and not the Ground Zero. And what was great with the Calgary division is they didn't just put out trash where some other divisions or like in smaller parts of leagues would just put out anything. You guys, like, every battle from your guys' main page was quality from Calgary. And
Thank you.
so whether or not it was a big name, you knew it was going to be good. That's what I'm trying to say, really.
I always felt like I really always felt like the Calgary division was a fans spot, right? And the Vancouver division was very much like that as well, because even the battlers who were really big fans of this, who weren't just kind of doing it for the check anymore, always loved coming to Vancouver and being a part of this community. The Calgary one too was like really, really fun. The Vancouver scene should be bigger and
It
should
should
be better. It hurts me that it's not. I wish somehow that could get figured out, because it's something that I'd be interested in doing nowadays, but not on my lonesome. I know what that's like, right? You need backing with stuff like that. But Vancouver should be bigger. It's a big city with a lot of things happening, a lot of cool ideas and cool stuff going on. There's no reason that it shouldn't be competing with the East Coast.
No, you got at one point in Vancouver when like they were kind of being consistent. Like I think there's one guy, I think his name is Rupert Common. Is that it? He was very unique and like something that like I thought should be going to other divisions or being seen on a bigger stage, you know?
Yeah, Rupert was dope. Yeah, he was cool. He was unique. And then him and Pigsty.
Yeah.
Pigsty was a really
Pigsty's
big name.
great.
It was very talented. He did about, you ever see his recent one that he did against Random?
Yes, it was great. Yeah, I
Really
love
good.
Pigsty. Yeah.
Pigsty's very good. I remember seeing Pigsty rap and being like, this kid gets it. I remember booking him in Calgary like the second that I saw him, trying to get a hold of him. Like, this is it.
Yeah, man, your events were great then. Like, and that was the problem I think with like as a fan anticipating a Toronto division battle, a Calgary division battle, and you're not really looking to watch a Montreal or Vancouver because they just never stayed that stable. And that was a bummer.
That was always our goal, was to stay consistent and stay stable. So we were throwing events every 6 weeks. We were on the release calendar just like Toronto was. Every 2 or 3 battles, you'd see a Calgary one coming up. So
yeah, no, and that's like, don't like, you're saying like you don't know what you got till it's gone. Like I mean it's cheesy, but it's true. Like I remember I went a few years ago to a place I grew up like in the ocean in Nova Scotia. I'm like, fuck, I don't appreciate being on the ocean, So like just know that the impact you've made in battle rap is indented in time. Like Sketch Menace,
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. That's cool to hear, because like it felt so weird to me at the time, because like I was living a relatively like normal life outside of battle rap and then doing this whole thing. So I was constantly explaining it to people and trying to validate it to everyone that I was talking to, right? And then I would go to these events and go to these scenes where I didn't have to explain myself, and it just felt so good and freeing to do that, right? And so honestly, I tip my hat to anybody who's kept going with it and figured out an income out of it and done the whole thing. Because even I look at the season 1 thing and I go, fuck, I should hit them up and go be a part of this and go do it. But then I think to myself, like, it's fun to think about the moment, but the lead up and all the prep and work that it takes, like, I don't know if I got that in me anymore.
Yeah, it's a whole different ball game now too. Like it's, as you say, like I still love it and it's a big part of me, but I can't keep up with everything now, and I can't keep up with all the different leagues and all the different names coming up, like it's like the 90s NBA. Yeah. Like you just know that you're like Penny or something like that, or you're like,
exactly.
You're like Kevin Johnson in Phoenix. You're always going to be known.
There's certain people who make it through that filter who are like now names now that I know, but like for the most part, like I'm sticking to what I know. Like I'm going to watch everything that King of the Dot puts out. I almost fucking banned it after I saw that frack robbery. I was like, I can't. But I mean, obviously, I was going to watch it. But we can talk about some specific battles if you want. But the
dude, that's well, I'll say funny. He mentioned so frack versus Disaster was a battle. King of the Dot had this tournament and they were streaming it on Twitch, and frack clearly got robbed. And my girlfriend the other day was watching a TikTok, and it was Frack's thing about the bar graph or the graph line against Disaster. Yeah, and she was like, is this good? Like, is this it? And I was like, oh yeah, it's really good. Because sometimes people who aren't battle rap fans don't know how to perceive it, right? Like they're like,
yeah,
is this good or is it? And that was quite a robbery, man.
It's as a fan, where do you perceive? How do you perceive what's good in battle rap?
For me, I like what's different, because I can like I don't want to be laying the tray down in the lunch line all the time. Like I can make fun of bars like that as a fan. Like as a fan of battle rap, you can anticipate what people are doing. And what I fell out of love was the originality. Like I love when like Carter Deems switched it up, and like I would only show people, like if they hadn't watched a battle before, I'd just show them a Carter Deems battle, because it's not like a bar heavy thing. I miss I miss records. I miss like having a purpose to watch it. Like the
Yeah,
NBA does. The NBA doesn't have 200 games and then just reset to another 200 games. They have the
yeah.
playoffs. You know what I mean? And like, so even you said, I don't know if this is completely correct, but you versus Dirtbag Dan, I think the one of the reasons for me in my eyes why you guys battled was I think your records were both like around 7-1 in each league at that point. So
Yeah,
like
that was the kind of, in my
that's what I
opinion, forced
miss.
meaning.
Yeah. But that's like what they used to match up fat guys. They used to match up. Remember like Roan versus Prophet in New
But in
York
a
and stuff.
creative standpoint, that is really, I think it's really cool. But like, you can't really take that spin of like two fat guys or like two, you know, whatever guys that you want to put that are somehow visually alike, or not even visually, somehow alike in whatever way, versus two people who have similar records. Like, just because we were undefeated was the only thing that made it interesting, right? It was somebody was going to walk away a loser out of this. It wasn't as if there was like it doesn't exist if everyone was, if there was like they're both 10-10.
Yeah.
You
No,
know?
and that's what like so to answer your question, kind of like what my perception of like a thing like Disaster versus Frack is what's wrong with battle rap is Disaster has always had this big name and always been revered, and I've never been a big fan. I respect him. I
Really?
understand why he's dope, but like, uh, I just like
Here,
I'm not
listen. I'm just
like
I got a coffee running through me. I'm gonna go pee really quick. I'm gonna come back and we're gonna talk about this.
yeah. I'll pause it. All right, we're back. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, but before I'm gonna say I respect him. I like Diz. I liked everything he's done, but there's two instances or comparisons that I'll do. Is Eminem is still looked at as Eminem, but I don't want to hear a 50-year-old just rhyming for rhyming. And then
Sorry, I'll take that analogy. I'll take that.
and the last fight Conor McGregor won was a few years ago. Like, but people still, you know what I mean? They want to see Conor McGregor, and Eminem fans are like Tom McDonald stands as well. But like, I just with Dizman, like he clearly lost that battle. But I think because the name and the judges clearly didn't know battle rap in that battle. I think you know
Which battle?
in the Disaster versus Frack, it was judges
Oh,
like
I don't think I think it was all about. I think Thesaurus hit the nail on the head. Like when he said when Thesaurus battled Diz, like his whole every word that he said about that room, and it was Diz's room and all that kind of stuff was like nail on the fucking head. Like there was no getting around that. When he said, I bet you the guy that you got a movie role for is going to have a hard time figuring out who to vote for. Like, you know, and just things like that. So I don't necessarily think it was people who didn't know battle rap. It was more of, I mean, just a shitty system that was created.
yes.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Because even though Thesaurus choked in their battle, I still, in my eyes, thought Thesaurus kind of won. Like I thought it was really good material,
God.
like you know. And so that's
one over and over and over
yeah.
again. Like, and then you know what? If he hadn't have said fuck at the end of it, I would have just thought that he ended it awkwardly, and
Yeah.
he just couldn't think of a good ender, and he just got and just went. Like if he hadn't had like sold that choke to me, then I really wouldn't have thought twice about it. I think that cost him the battle, just reacting to it.
It's because he's Thesaurus and he's like the best ever, so he's so critical of himself, right?
Yeah.
Like
I'll always watch the Thesaurus battle forever.
same. Oh, dude, I watched him versus Justice the other day after talking to Kruger because we were speaking about WRCs, and I was just like,
Yeah.
that's somebody who I wish came up in the scene like after freestyle and was Justice, you know?
Yeah, he would have been cool. He always had a good mind for it. He always understood exactly how punchlines hit, and you know that's what it was. It was guys who understood how punchlines hit. A lot of it was comedy in that way. I think a lot of the people who excelled at that time were just good at getting your point across. You know.
And all right, and yeah, so you said you wanted to talk some battles. I want to talk about your podcast before we sign off, but battles. First off, what's your favorite battle of yours?
I would for sure say me versus Soul.
Okay, and that's a great battle. Oh, the fucking line about the dogs playing poker.
Yeah. That one. You know what, man?
That one skyrocketed. Like at that time, there was probably a lull of people like with your battles, but that's when people like cemented like, oh, Sketch Menace is still here. He's still, you know, like he's still fucking here.
Like. That's what it felt like. And you know what? At that time, I really went out and I wasn't watching any battles at that point, and I wasn't so engulfed in the scene. So I was just that battle. I remember I felt the most free to just kind of be myself. Fuck it, let's see what happens. Write punchlines that I thought were good or are cool. I remember writing that dog poker line and being like, and being like, oh, is this gonna hit? Are people gonna like this or whatever? And obviously it went great. Honestly, everything fucking hit. That whole battle was just magic. And from Soul side too, it was really good. I'm really grateful to have that classic with him. I remember he battled Unanimous shortly after and decimated Unanimous's. I remember being like, oh, I hit up Souls like, thank you for not doing that to me. Like that, I'm so happy there's not a video out there that someone's that can watch of that happening to me.
And here's a thing for you. One positive note I'll talk about Diz. 'Cause I'm not saying I hate him. I'm just saying I think he's a bit too much like over appreciated. But his huge fan of Diz line against Unanimous is one of the funniest moments. He's what rhymes with unanimous? Huge fan of Diz.
You know what, man? So just to respond to the disaster comment, because
yeah, go for it.
I could talk about battle rap for days. It feels like I should do more content on it. But like Diz, there was a time where Diz was representing us on a really worldly level. I remember when just after he had battled Swave Seva in New York and the Arsenal battle in at Massacre of the Bay, and just all like there, he was just on such an incline. And like, admittedly, and I really like the Eminem analogy because like I get it, like what he's doing now and what he perceives now is like doesn't really fit who he is, at least in my opinion, or how I know him. But his ability to capture a room and like, bro, in terms of punchlines, and maybe I'm just being biased because he said sketch Menace your necklace off you to DNA, but the like it I just think that the Jersey Swift blonde being like after that last round, even the crickets in the back were like, what the fuck? And just the way that he did things at that point in time and captured the audience and captured the world in battles, he has this specialness about him. Like I can't say that I look forward to what he has to say in a battle nowadays. In the same way that I look forward to what Fresco might say in a battle, or like Big K might say, or even Pat Stay might say in a battle nowadays. But like knowing what I know about the battle rap scene and just being a part of it for so many years, just like taking credibility away from Disaster feels sacrilegious to me.
Oh, 100%. It's like a love or hate thing too, because like I appreciate what he's done, and but like there's things too, like and like, say like a big tall guy's like clowning a short guy in school. Like everybody's gonna root for the big tall guy, right? Like him versus A Class. Like I feel like A Class loses that no matter what going into it. When like people should like they don't. Some people I find wouldn't view a battle equally. Like they just think Diz is gonna win, and they think it's funny about like his whole all the Asian stuff, and he'd been preparing for Jin and everything. So that's but then also there's there's a differential where he'd battle Little G. You know what I mean? So like he's also like a human,
he's also a part of it. But at the end of the day, the A Class thing was about camaraderie, right? Like he had these amazing lines that he wanted to get off. The world wanted to see him against Jin. It was never going to happen. So A Class stepped up to do the thing, to do his damn thing. And A Class, I remember, did hilarious. They stepped up to the plate. That battle gave A Class a name. So like in a lot of ways, he was starting off a career. So Diz is very much about the scene, and for a lot of people who don't know, like he doesn't. I don't want to give out too much business or whatever, but he doesn't like. He quite often takes less monetary gain to make the battle better, or to somehow secure an opponent, or to make some like he often gets the label as being the hard one to deal with, but in a lot of ways he is the easier one to deal with in making it happen. He just he just gets inside of himself when it's game day,
and no, and I agree with you 100%. And that's what I like about this podcast too, is I bring my opinion, but then like it's great I'm speaking to people who are in the scene, because I'm not going to argue with you, or it's not going to be a thing. It's just good to learn, so
I mean, it's arguable. It's like,
and what's funny too is Disaster, I'm thinking about this through like the whole interview, and I can't believe I didn't bring it up or think about it before. So Sketch was supposed to battle who was like the head of Don't Flop, who like blocked me after I asked him for an interview, but he saw that I interviewed Kruger too, but I didn't want to speak about any beef. I just want to interview people for who they are. Sorry, that's my
they're not cool anymore.
Yeah, the whole whole Don't Flop thing and everything.
I don't know the ins and outs of everything that happened. I don't know.
Basically took money from everybody and kicked them all off, and then that's when they started like premier
battles. He's still doing Don't Flop stuff, kind of, isn't he?
With like D tier rappers, yeah. But so Sketch was supposed to battle and didn't show up, and there's a whole thing with Disaster didn't like too from an event where Disaster put in his place, but Disaster dressed up as and let Sketch Menace rap against him. What was that like? Because like, everything else is so serious in battle rap, and it's not like you're doing a compliment battle, so you want to get your bars off, but also it's probably tough looking at the person while you're doing it.
Was weird. It was the most. It was the weirdest, simultaneously the most fun I've ever had during a battle. Like I was not stressed at all, right? So like I wasn't worried about remembering my tier. I remember being like, because I had practiced, because obviously the tone of and I is an angry one. Not like we're gonna fight, but more so like you're a piece of shit. Like we don't like each other. To this day, I think that he probably doesn't like me very
well.
much.
And you were representing Canada too, because a lot of people weren't doing it. Like you know what I mean. There was all this shit going on with and talking shit, and then like you were a representative of King of the Dot for that, and that was
as a staff member.
Yes,
why I felt, and I was the only active staff member battling, which is why I felt that cross to carry. Right, like I was like I got to do something. So that's why when I battled Soul, I was like, well, I'm obviously going to take this opportunity to respond to what Don't Flop had said, or what and Kruger had said in their last one. And like, I didn't think much of it past like, this is a good angle, right? And it'll hit. But they took it really seriously. And then it created a good storyline for me. And then I wish showed up. I still think that would have been a great battle, me versus
because he's great. That's the thing. Like I have a thing about him too, because
my material for it. I loved my material for it. And sorry to cut you off, but the biggest problem that I had preparing for that, once I knew Disaster was going to step in, was like taking all the prep time that I had done with this angry tone and how I wanted to do things. And then so in the battle, I come off as very aggressive when it's like I just kind of instinct kicked in, when I should have been a lot more playful with it. But I rewrote a whole bunch of stuff the night before, so to try and fit the narrative of what was happening. So it was fun. I don't know. It was just fun.
Yeah. No, of course, man. And like, that's the thing, like with battle rap, like, man, we could just keep going. You know what I mean? Cause then I could also ask you like a funny thing. It's probably not, but for you, but like if people would be like, okay, what's your battle resume? Be like, oh, well, I battled Diz.
Yeah.
that's my number one right there.
Yeah, exactly.
Diz, absurd.
Now, my two favorite battles are probably Reverse Live and Soul.
Yes, your Reverse Live battle was great. And the Soul battle, like to this day, like I haven't watched that battle for probably 6 years. That
really?
line is still in my head. That
That's
line
awesome.
is
I'm
still
happy
in
to hear that.
like I'm just like, and like, so actually another random battle rap question. At this point, the people who are the real battle heads are going to be listening. When you battled Soul, I'm not sure if he had this battle out before, but one of my favorite battles at the time was Soul versus Old English.
Oh, I watched that so many times leading up to it. And I loved his whole outdoor cadence of everything. And he goes, once upon a time, battle rap was fun. And like, yeah, I love that whole battle.
Yeah, that's one of those battles that are just like gems, kind of like the Star Almighty and Carter Deems, like
another Soul battle that's a gem is Soul versus Most Prob.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who Most Prob, first and only person to get engaged during a rap battle.
That was crazy. I remember. Yeah, I love that moment. That makes me like tear up. I'm like, oh, this is so cool. Like, and I love being able to see the audience know when they hear they're like, he's gonna ask her to marry me, because they knew the multi and I was gonna rhyme with it at the end and stuff. And it's just so cool that they did that. I thought that was like, I know that kind of stuff was Liam in the background really working his magic and that, because he's such a genius. Like when he came into Don't Flop, there was such a obvious change in Don't Flop with like Kruger and Liam and all these and Bam all working together and stuff. It's a shame it's not going to this day.
It's tough. It was a hard falling out, but you know what? Like,
I was really happy to have battled there in its hype, like at its
don't, because that's the thing. Like, Don't Flop to me at that certain point, man. Like the Blood in the Water events and like the standard events and the checkpoint events, they were all up there with the world dominations and everything.
So much fun, man. So much fun. When I was out there, kids were telling me stuff that like they were like, oh yeah, when you said the absurd this that I said 10 years ago or whatever, I was like, wow, in England kids know this shit. That's crazy.
Oh yeah, dude. It's such a it's worldwide, it's what I try to explain to people who don't understand it. I'm like, they call rapping flip top in the Philippines. They don't even say rapping. Like, and
really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's what. So, and then like, so my brother's girlfriend is Filipino, and I remember we were like, when I first met her, I was like, have you ever heard of flip top? And she's like, oh, battle. And I was like, yeah. And like, right off that, like, that's what they know. Like, and they'll be like, oh, do you flip top instead of like, do you cipher? Wow. Or are you an MC?
I remember when Low and Bender went out there. It was really cool. I think Sharon went out there as well.
Oh, and Swave Seva and Diz went out there as well. They battled at the same place that the Thriller in Manila was.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's
Like, that's
cool.
cool, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's the kind of shit. That's really what kept me going in battles. Like, I love the fact I grew up in Toronto, going to rap shows. So the fact that I did Me and Soul battled at the Opera House is really cool to me. I got to battle at the in London. We got to at the in England. We did the starts with an M. It's some crazy house theater.
Oh,
That's
is it
like
Manchester Sound Theater or something like
yeah,
that?
yeah, something like that. And it's like a huge EDM scene, like electronic music venue. Really, really cool the way that it's set up. That was really cool. In Phoenix, Arizona, when we did that smack battle against DNA that ended up on King of the Dot,
Yeah. Oh,
that was a weird one, but that was at Celebrity Theater where Louis C.K. had performed and George Carlin had performed there.
see, isn't that cool to just be like, say associate with that, right? Like
Yeah.
battling has brought so much. So like that's what we said. Like, even though like Don't Flop fell off, even though like there's not like the thing in Calgary, man, like those are all cemented in time, right? And that's why battle rap's so cool. And like,
Yeah.
what transitioned you? It's I know it didn't come right away, but your podcast, I think, as of now has 48 episodes.
Yeah, we do. I do
And
exclusive in Vancouver.
like what let's just give me like your like what you started it for, the guys that you do with, and then just an explanation of like certain cool things that you've had maybe that we could link an episode for.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, honestly, man, I got a lot of homies that I work with around. I got a bunch of different businesses that I'm a part of. So it's kind of works in tandem with our lives. We were always hanging out and talking. Before COVID, we were running a dab lounge. So like people were like in downtown Vancouver. So there was like a very Cheers-esque conversation thing happening going on all the time. And we decided like, oh, we should do our own podcast. We've got like all this space, we got all the whatever ins and outs of being able to do it, and we have a guy who's very technically sound in producing it for us, that's just kind of chilling with us all day every day. So it was one of those things that just kind of came together. We don't put a ton of thought into it. We just kind of throw shit at the wall and have fun. In my opinion, I think Vancouver is a really interesting city. I think it's very slept on a worldwide level. If you've ever watched The Wire, Vancouver is very similar to that in the sense of it's a port city. There's one of the only semi-legalized drugs area in downtown Vancouver, which is the downtown east side out here, which is very similar to like Skid Row, or if you're again familiar with The Wire, Amsterdam, where cops pretty much watch drug deals and things go and happen all day. It's the biggest hotspot for the opiate epidemic in the world. So that mixed with the fact that it's got the highest real estate prices in the world too, or one of the top 3 cities or whatever. You can go surfing and snowboarding in the same day here. The skateboarding scene is really rich. It's North Hollywood. There's celebrities everywhere, and it's just really this untapped place that like culturally I don't think it's a ton of representation. So we started the Main and Hastings show just to kind of talk about that, talk about sneaker releases that were happening, fun stuff that we were interested in, things happening in the city. And then for what we started, I mean, conspiracies always, for whatever reason, take up the conversation nowadays. So we got into like these ghost hunter guys that we knew wanted to come on the show, and they brought us all of their like technology for hunting ghosts and stuff. So we actually like went to the basement of where our studio is and went down and tried to hunt for ghosts and stuff in one episode. So that was the last one that we did. So you can check that out. And I'm not a believer in ghosts and bullshit like that. So, and my other co-hosts and friends, excuse me, are. So, we argue back and forth about that kind of stuff. And they're just friends of mine. Skater homie Herman, shout out to him. We work together. We do a lot of cool stuff together. We were throwing sneaker conventions and hype beast conventions out here pre-COVID that were doing really well. We were doing 3, 4, 5,000 people in convention centers over a weekend trading sneakers and doing stuff like that. So and skateboarding culture bullshit. My friend Jamie, who's a big collector of the finer things in life, he's got cool watches and cars and shit. So, and he's a real old school East Van head. So he used to box out here, do a lot of really cool things. So he's a legend out here. So we try and bring these new perspectives to the city. Herman being a younger born and bred, Jamie being older born and bred, and me kind of being newer and being more interested in kind of wrapping everything together because I'm asking the questions and kind of bringing in that interest.
No, that's cool. And also, I'm not sure. I watched a few episodes to prepare. Um, you're wearing a hat right now. I don't know if he's like an occurring guest or occurring host, but one of the other guys runs a really successful restaurant in Vancouver, it seems.
Yeah, Doug Steven, Download Doug, man. This is Download Chicken. It's a good friend of mine. He's a business partner of mine as well. I represent him to the death. He's sponsored by my life.
That's sweet, man. Here's I'll give you my first, my dad lived in Port Moody and was the director of immigration at Simon Fraser for a few years, and then he
Cool.
was the president of University of BC for a few years. Are you like a foodie at all?
Oh yeah.
So is Meat and Bread still a place there?
Oh yeah. Fuck, the meatball sub there is fucking stupid, bro.
One of
Yeah.
my favorite sandwiches, like probably my favorite sandwich I've ever had in my life was there.
Oh man, Meat and Bread. Vancouver's a great place to eat, dude. And my friend Doug, who is taking over the city in terms of like a universe of flavors that he's creating and stuff. Download Chicken. He just did a burger shack. He does like a fish and chips thing. Yeah, it's really successful. So the guy prints money running chicken.
Well,
Like,
that's what I was very
crack, dude. It's crack. It's so good.
well. That's what seems about your guys' podcast. What was so interesting to me because it's a bunch of people speaking about certain subjects, but like as you said, like a skater, a guy who's like an old head, who's like in the finer things. You who are like a multifaceted and all these different things, right? And then like it's a pretty cool amalgamation of like people put together for a certain thing. And like I listened to this Canadian podcast hosted by this Australian lady. It's about like Canadian crimes, and
Oh, I
so
think I
you got
listened to it as well. I'm big into Canadian true crime and
well,
stuff.
she
I do that
speaks.
all the time.
If people know about the Highway of Tears or Robert Pickton and everything like that, like, you guys probably have you guys spoken about the thing with like with Hastings Street and the missing Native women and how it was such a thing and cops
Well,
would
that's
just
what Maine and
say,
Hastings is, right? Maine and
yeah,
Hastings. If you Google Maine and Hastings in Vancouver, you'll see that's the epicenter. That's the corner where the shit goes down. And just a few blocks down from there, actually, is Princess and Cordova. I lived right there, right at the block. This is the poorest postal code in all of Canada.
the most poverty stricken part of Canada.
Yes, bar none. But besides, we should say, besides most native reserves, it is it is the poorest postal code in Canada. So I lived right there at Princess and Cordova for a few years, and that is the corner where where Robert Pickton did all of his work essentially. So I hope to see like a movie or documentary come out about that one day. But like, yeah, like that was really big news. So, and there's a ton of crazy shit that's happening in Vancouver right now too, and like the gangster side of things. There's like shootings almost every day. So like, it's not to say that we want to sit there and glorify that, but it's like it's an interesting place that doesn't really get talked about quite at all. Like you mentioned the Highway of Tears, it's a really slept on part of the world, and like to think just south of us is the Pacific Northwest from the United States, which is where like all serial killers are from, and like Seattle and this and that. So it's an interesting spot, man. Listen to the podcast, Maine and Hastings. It's we jump back and forth a lot, so you might come across an episode where we've got two sex workers on and we're talking about what it's like to be a sex worker during COVID, or we might have Download Doug talking about fried chicken and sneakers and stuff and what's going on in the city, or we had the ghost hunters on and stuff. So we kind of want to we don't want to get hitched on to anything too much either, because we just want to keep having fun, but we also want to keep just surprising people and give people like an entrance into what's happening in Vancouver, because there's not a lot of centralized content for the city. And we do a lot of other shows. We do a show called Disrespect, which is where we smoke weed and rate food and go to a different place. We haven't done too many episodes yet, but we want to, and we'll keep having fun with it. Luckily, our lives kind of gives us the freedom to do this kind of shit. So we'll keep up.
Hey, that's cool. And that's a great, yeah. Please, people, listen to Maine and Hastings and check Sketch's battles out. Just type in Sketch Menace versus Sketch
Hey,
Menace.
before we leave, I want to ask you. So
Yeah.
I don't have many honest conversations with fans or anything. So what does if you had to describe me to someone as like what this guy was in battle rap and what he did in the most honest way possible, tell me what it is. I'd like to hear it.
Okay, so I'll do the most honest possible because you look a fucking lot like one of my older brothers. I have an older brother, Rafe, and your guy's demeanor has always come across the same to me. And so, like, what I love now is speaking to you and seeing how free and happy you are and all the stuff you're doing. But Rafe was always like such a dick to me. So sorry, this is going up. Okay, so I started loving hip hop because of Rafe, MF Doom, Jedi Mind Tricks, Ill Bill, all this shit, right? Old school tribe, all that. And then he knew that I liked it, but he hated that I liked what he liked. And he would buy me Kanye West albums that I didn't want to fucking listen to.
Yeah.
And like after Kanye was bad, like the bad Kanye, or like, but like I always respected him, and he always had a. This is very. So I always thought you were very well put together, and you knew exactly what you were doing. Like,
Oh.
like I always like looked at you as like a multifaceted human being, and like, but all I knew of you was Sketch Menace, the battle rapper, and the league owner, and you were one of the only people to be active, a league runner and battler, which was so impressive to me. And what's amazing to me as a fan years later is seeing that you have all these cool different things that are going on with you. And like right now, because I'm in Ontario in lockdown, I was like looking at your Instagram and shit like that. And I'm like, like, because I'm an industry dude too, like working in restaurants or whatever.
Right.
And I was like, fuck, he seems like such a cool dude, and he hangs out with cool people. And then so I saw the podcast, I listened to it, and it's so cool because as a fan of battle rap, you only have your preconceived notions of what this is, man. But yeah, dude, you're just a cool ass dude. Like I didn't fucking know you were a good skateboarder and played Super Smash Bros.
Thanks,
You know what
man.
I mean?
Thanks. Yeah, I always, you know what, man, my biggest mistake coming up in battles was I didn't let myself shine through enough. There's some weird bravado-ness that was going on that I really can't explain now. I don't really have an explanation for, but that's why I think I really did well in the Soul and Reverse Live and whatever battles, because I was really not hitched to any saddle at that point. I just said what I thought was cool, or and like run above your level like a Mario glitch things, and stuff like that. It was fun, right?
Yeah, no, man, no, and it's so funny. It's so funny. Like I didn't know how I was gonna tell you, but yeah, bro, you look a lot like my brother Rafe, and it's always kind of been weird to me because like,
That's awesome, man. It's not weird at all. It's funny. It's funny.
Yeah, but yeah, once again, thanks for being on. I'm gonna end the episode. Thanks for listening. I'm gonna keep on with Sketch to say thank you, but next week we have Johnny Storm, and the week after we have Nestle. Thanks for listening to the podcast. Appreciate it.
Both of those dudes.
Yeah, Zach. Anything else to plug, man, other than Maine and Hastings, and then like old battles of yours?
Not really, man. Only watch me versus Soul and me versus Reverse Live and me versus Bender. Don't watch any other battles.
Nothing else exists.
Yeah, I'm sure that there's a few others. And I appreciate you having me on, Sam. It's been fun. It's been cool. No, follow me on Instagram, Zach Menace. Watch me in Hastings.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.